My friends and I are part of a neighborhood watch group, but I couldn't tell General Hammond the truth. Not about demons, not about vampires. Briefing room, SGC, a few hours later. It was nearly 6 hours later when Willow and SG-1 were called back to the briefing room. With the folder containing the results of Willow's background check in his hand, Hammond stepped out of his office and addressed them. Welcome back, everyone. Hammond strode to his seat at the head of the table and motioned for them to sit. He placed Willow to his left, while O'Neill took the seat to his right, directly across from her. Carter sat beside Willow, with Daniel and Teal'c seated across the table. Hammond set the blue folder, its cover embossed with the Air Force logo on the table. Turning toward Willow, he asked, Miss Rosenberg, I trust my officers have made you feel at home here? Yes, thank you, Willow replied with a nod. And please, call me Willow. Miss Rosenberg makes me feel old, waving her hands in a flustered gesture. Not that I'm saying anyone here is too old or anything, or that I'm old, I... Take a breather, Red, O'Neill interjected, raising an eyebrow at the redhead. Sorry, Willow muttered. When I get nervous, I kind of babble. That's all right, Willow, Daniel reassured her. Hammond cleared his throat, drawing everyone's attention back to him. He rested his hands on the folder. I received the results of the background check 30 minutes ago. His gaze moved across the room before settling on Willow. Your security clearance will take some time. Someone will be arriving soon to conduct further interviews. Returning to Sunnydale or going backpacking were certainly options. Staying in Colorado Springs and working at this deep space radar telemetry facility was another. It sounded interesting. She hoped she might one day work on rovers heading to Mars. That would be cool, Willow thought. But would I have to go to school here? Can I work? Will they let me do both? Mom and Dad would probably be okay with it, but they will definitely have questions about why I wouldn't go to Stanford or MIT or someplace like that. She wondered if Hammond truly wanted her to stay. After all, they wouldn't run background checks and security clearances on just anyone, would they? Her thoughts drifted back to Buffy and the rest of the Scoobies. They had been such a constant in her life. Could she really let that go so easily? She had heard stories of people losing touch with friends after moving away for college. If she stayed here, would that happen to her too? No, Willow decided firmly. If I stay, I'll call Buffy and Xander every day. Taking a steadying breath, Willow focused as the general opened the folder. I spoke with the president again after receiving your background check results, Hammond announced. He glanced at the rest of SG-1 before continuing. Once again, the president agrees that Willow would be an asset to this command. He paused briefly. While her background check contains no information about magic, it does highlight her academic achievements. Excellent grades, numerous awards, member of the chess club, outstanding standardized test scores. He looked up at Carter. She beat your scores, Captain. Carter chuckled, and Willow grinned, her face gradually turning red with embarrassment. Hammond continued. There is, however, a note regarding a hospital admission about a year ago. Willow froze. A year ago. Then came rushing back. She had been hospitalized after the attack in the high school library while attempting to restore Angel's soul. She had nearly completed the spell when the demons broke in, led by Angelus and Drusilla. They attacked her, shattering the orb of Tessula in the process. Xander, Giles, and Kendra had been there too. It was the night Giles was kidnapped, the night Kendra was killed. Willow had ended up in the hospital, and from there, she had tried the reassoulment spell again. That time, she succeeded. But she couldn't tell Hammond any of that. Not about demons, not about vampires. She wasn't ready. She could say she had overused magic, that she had collapsed from exhaustion, but what if the report mentioned her injuries? Well, Willow began, scrambling for an explanation. My friends and I are part of a neighborhood watch group. Hammond inclined his head, signaling her to continue. I have a small group of friends in that group who know I use magic, and he hesitated briefly. Sunnydale has gangs that are usually hopped up on PCP, and they sometimes cause trouble. They know magic exists? Carter asked, leaning forward slightly. Willow noticed the others doing the same, waiting for her response. She nodded. Yeah, that's true, Daniel added. I've done some research. There are frequent reports of gang attacks involving PCP, or incidents attributed to a possible serial killer using a two-pronged barbecue fork. Willow nodded again in agreement. So, one night, she continued, I was alone and I got attacked. I used some magic to throw him off me and ran. My friends got to him before I could be hurt any further. You never should have gone out alone, Carter admonished gently, concern evident in her voice. Willow offered a small, sheepish smile. Yeah, learned that the hard way. My best friend, she's part of the group, insisted I go to the hospital because I was pretty bruised up. So I did. It's a very unusual city, Daniel remarked, leaning back in his chair. People go missing, and the local paper has an obituary section instead of sports. Willow quickly added, We don't really have a lot of sports teams. Still, Daniel continued, there are reports of murders, animal attacks, and, like Willow mentioned, PCP related gang violence. High crime rates for a small city. And that's not even counting the unusually high number of churches, graveyards, and a thriving funeral home industry. Willow shrugged slightly. Just one of those small city quirks, I guess. More like highly unusual, Daniel corrected. To anyone unsure of the truth, it was unusual, and Willow intended to keep it that way. For now. After all, how could she possibly explain demons, vampires, werewolves, and everything else? The general then interrupted her train of thought after taking out another piece of paper from a pocket within the folder. It wasn't part of the background check. Willow knew that. It was the short explanation about magic she had submitted to him a couple of hours ago. The general handed the paper to O'Neill, who skimmed through it. Hammond remarked, I've read through the report, and magic is apparently very powerful and versatile, but it comes with its risks, costs, and responsibilities. O'Neill nodded, his expression shifting between awe and concern. The paper was then passed to Tilk, and afterward to Daniel. For her part, Willow explained that she was a relative beginner, and that the wishing spell was the most significant one she had cast. Technically, it wasn't a lie. True, there was the soul restoration spell, but the wishing spell had teleported her from Sunnydale to Colorado Springs, and a part of her was afraid. Giles had always warned her to be careful, that for all the benefits of magic, the most dangerous downsides were its corrupting influence, the risk of becoming dependent on it, and the potential for magical backlash. She believed her sudden travel could count as backlash as well, yet a part of her also felt as if she belonged here. Huh, Carter murmured as she read through the paper, while Willow remained deep in thought. A part of Willow wanted to return to Sunnydale. It was her home, after all. Her friends were there, and she liked helping out, using both her magic and research skills to fight back against the threats lurking in the dark. But the incident with the wishing spell, along with her sudden arrival in Colorado Springs, proved she still didn't have a full handle on magic. She feared that she might dig deeper into it just to prove she could be a great witch, and that, in doing so, she would become dependent on it, like a drug. Giles had warned her about that too. Willow knew magic felt like excitement. The re-ensoulment spell had been a huge rush. But then again, after discovering Veruca and Oz waking up together, she had been ready to cast a spell to make them hate each other. It had been impulsive, reckless, and she had no idea what the consequences might have been, or whether there would have been backlash. And while she hadn't gone through with it, the mere desire to do so unsettled her. Could she pull herself back again if she ever reached that brink? Then Willow realized something else. She had already given in. The wishing spell itself had been born from her grief and anger. If she chose to stay in Colorado Springs, she would also be without someone to properly train her in magic. Heck, I've lived without magic for most of my life, Willow thought. And why would I need magic for deep space radar telemetry anyway? Maybe it was time for a simpler life. If she stayed in Colorado Springs, she could direct Buffy and the others to Tara, a girl from her Wicca group. Willow had sensed real power in Tara, unlike the others, who were more interested in bake sales than actual magic. It was something to think about, giving up magic. If she stayed in Colorado Springs, it might be something she would seriously consider. She also wondered whether she would attend Colorado State or the Air Force Academy if she were offered a position at the facility. The latter was something she had never considered before. It would certainly be different. Willow noticed another uniformed officer approach the general, hand him a folder, and then disappear down a hallway. The general handed the folder to her. Willow opened it to find several sheets of paper inside. Hammond explained that she was looking at a non-disclosure agreement. Deep space radar telemetry is only a small part of what we do here, he stated. Willow furrowed her brows. The bulk of the analysis is carried out in NORAD, topside. Willow nodded. While radar telemetry is important for the protection of our country and the world, what we do here is, well, more, O'Neill interjected. More than anything you're thinking right now. The atmosphere suddenly felt more dramatic. Willow found herself increasingly curious about what truly went on in this facility. Super advanced rovers, maybe? She wondered. Or new space shuttles? Space lasers? The work we do is highly classified. Above top secret, Hammond continued. Like I said, the President wants you for this program. As do I. Before Willow could respond, he added, the upside of using magic is useful. I am concerned about the downsides though. Are you able to handle yourself without it? I don't understand. Handle myself how? Willow asked. Academically, Hammond clarified. Willow nodded. And physically? There may be times when teams are deployed overseas? Willow asked. You could say that, Daniel replied with a tight smile. O'Neill jumped in. When Daniel first joined us, he couldn't throw a solid punch. I could, Daniel protested. You strained yourself punching a sandbag, and you weren't even hitting it hard, O'Neill countered. Daniel is a civilian consultant, Carter added. He still had to undergo training in both unarmed and armed combat. She turned to Willow. What the general is asking is whether you're willing to do the work, training included, to get out there with a team. You have shown you possess certain unique abilities, Hammond continued. Those could be invaluable at critical moments, but are you able to function without constantly relying on your magic? With training, I guess, Willow began, then stopped. No, she had always been a mouse at Sunnydale High. Even after meeting Buffy, she had only changed a little. Not that it was Buffy's fault. Willow didn't blame her or Xander. She needed to change. She needed to be more confident, more outgoing. Yes, she answered firmly. Before we proceed, I need you to sign these non-disclosure forms, Hammond instructed as Willow looked up at him. They state that you cannot disclose anything you see or hear about this facility. It will be your choice to accept or reject the offer I intend to make. But regardless, you will not be allowed to speak about it. Do you understand, young lady? Yes, as long as I have the choice to accept or reject your offer, Willow replied nervously. Very well, Hammond acknowledged. But even if you decline, the NDA remains in effect. You cannot reveal anything. I understand, Willow stammered, nodding as she picked up the pen attached to the folder and began reading the agreement. Once she had read and signed the forms, General Hammond asked Carter to continue the briefing. Carter explained the history of the Stargate, the extent of the network, the Goa'uld, the Jaffa, and the Asgard. She deliberately left out the ancients for now, concerned that too much information might overwhelm Willow. When Carter finished, everyone turned to Willow, waiting for her reaction. Willow stared back, mouth slightly opened like a stunned goldfish. After a few seconds, she shook her head and leaned forward. Wait a second, there really are aliens. I mean little green men from Mars. O'Neill raised a finger and leaned forward. Gray, actually. Roswell Gray. And they're not from Mars, Daniel added. Their home world is called Orilla, in the Othala Galaxy. Othala Galaxy. How many aliens have you encountered? Are they good? Bad? Like in Star Trek? Willow asked excitedly. Well, it's complicated, Daniel replied with a chuckle. Most civilizations we encounter are actually human. They were taken from Earth thousands of years ago. Their descendants still live on those worlds. So, technically they aren't aliens. Their cultures just evolved differently. But, if you look closely, many of their societies are modeled on ancient Earth civilizations. Wow, that's heavy, Willow breathed. Willow Rosenberg, what do weights have to do with our conversation? Teal'c asked, confused. Nothing, Murray. Willow corrected quickly. It just means it's a lot to take in. Now that you have signed the required forms, I may tell you that my name is Teal'c, he clarified. Willow snapped her head toward him, grinning as realization dawned. She noticed the symbol on his forehead, and her grin widened even more. Murray is a cover name, not of my choosing. Teal'c continued. I am a Jaffa, and I fight alongside SG-1 and the Tauri to free my people. Wow, I'm sitting next to someone from outer space, Willow exclaimed. Sorry, not alien. But still, that's so cool. Xander would kill to be here right now. I do not believe this Xander should murder someone to meet me, Teal'c replied, raising an eyebrow. Teal'c, that's just a figure of speech. No actual murder involved, O'Neill clarified, shaking his head. Sorry, Teal'c mentioned SG-1 and the Tauri. What are those? Willow asked, turning to the group. SG-1 is the frontline team, O'Neill explained, gesturing to each member. Me, Carter, Daniel, and Teal'c. We get the toughest assignments. Seems like every week we're getting shot at by some Goa'uld. As for the Tauri, Daniel added, that's us, the people of Earth. It means First World. Earth was where the Goa'uld took humans from and spread them across other planets. But we can go into more detail later. Wow, Willow murmured, clearly amazed. It was then that Hammond turned to Willow and asked her something the redhead had thought was impossible. She knew that messages had been sent into space, but there had been no response, and now she had discovered that there had been an organization working in secret, sending people to other planets. Willow forced herself to refocus when Hammond asked how she would feel about joining the Stargate program. The young woman could hardly believe her ears when he promised that her magical abilities would be kept above top secret. Her file would be accessible only to the President, and not even the Vice President or the Joint Chiefs would know about her abilities. Willow listened as the General reiterated that she was an incredibly intelligent young woman who would be an asset to the program and to the country. While you certainly have the option to work as a civilian specialist, like Dr. Jackson, Hammond explained, and Willow turned toward Daniel, who simply shrugged. You may also choose to graduate from the Air Force Academy as an officer. Willow remained in disbelief over everything she had heard. Vampires, demons, slayers. They existed. She knew that. And now she had just learned that aliens existed as well. Not only did they exist, but there was a way to travel to other worlds, other human-populated worlds, through a piece of alien technology. She had never expected to hear anything like this. Rovers and space debris no longer seemed important. She wondered whether she should be a civilian or an officer. You can take your time. Hammond's voice faded into the background. Whether as a civilian specialist or an officer, she would be able to work at the facility. She assumed the academy option would be more rigorous, especially for her. Images from movies came to mind. Drill sergeants shouting as recruits rushed through training. Could she handle something like that? Would she even want to? Could she thrive in a military environment? It would be completely different. And what about magic? Earlier she thought she wouldn't need magic to work in the facility when she believed it was just a tracking station. But now? Could magic even work on other planets? But now? Could magic even work on another world? I was living pretty well when I didn't know about magic, Willow thought to herself. And I did want to go somewhere where I'm accepted for who I am, not just for magic. The academy was something she would never have considered. Just thinking about basic training made her nervous. But Willow felt it was something she needed to do. She wanted to take a different path. The wish had taken her out of Sunnydale, and now she had an opportunity to follow a road she never would have chosen before. The Air Force is looking for the best and brightest, Willow. Hammond continued as she focused on him again. If you choose to accept this offer, I will sponsor your entry into the Air Force Academy. You will also perform various duties in this facility whenever you are on break. Once you graduate, you will be placed on an SG team and sent on missions through the Stargate. So, what do you say? It was time to jump in with both feet. Demons, vampires, ghosts. Willow had encountered all of them. Heck, she had even turned into a ghost for Halloween. But this was different. This was something so far beyond anything she had ever imagined that, well, it truly was out of this world. The existence of aliens was one thing, but traveling to other worlds? Not other countries, but entirely different worlds was overwhelming. The idea made her heart feel like it was about to burst out of her chest. It was that exciting. Yes, that would be her answer. She wanted to do something she had chosen for herself, and she wanted this. Could she regret it later? Maybe. The training would probably be a nightmare, but if she could face her own vampiric alternate self, then she could handle someone yelling at her to run, run, run. For a chance to visit other worlds, meet other humans, and meet aliens? Willow exclaimed, glancing at Hammond, then at Carter, Daniel, Teal'c, O'Neill, before returning her gaze to Hammond. Oh, I would definitely accept. Very good, Hammond replied with a nod. I'm glad to hear that. In the meantime, I'll complete the necessary paperwork. Whenever you're ready, Colonel O'Neill would arrange for you to call your family and friends. We will also make arrangements to retrieve anything you require from your home. But remember, you may tell your friends and family anything except about the existence of the Stargate program, aliens, and everything we have discussed here. Is that understood? Willow nodded. She was doing the right thing. She knew her earlier instinct had been correct. Her accidental arrival at the SGC because of her wish had been a blessing in disguise. These people believed she was intelligent and resourceful enough to join the ranks, not just because of her magic, but because of who she was as a person. Now, she just needed to figure out what to tell Buffy, Xander, and the others. Dismissed, people, Hammond ordered. Hey Willow, we're heading into town for a bite to eat. Feel like joining us? Daniel asked. Sure, Willow replied. Definitely. To be continued.